The night air was cold as Jia Kim walked between the rows of hospital beds. Her white nurse uniform was stained with blood from the day's work. The field hospital near the border was always busy. Soldiers came in wounded from training accidents and border patrols. Tonight felt different, though. Something was wrong. Jia stopped at bed 12 where Private Minho lay sleeping. His leg was broken in 3 places from a Jeep accident 2 days ago. She checked his chart and frowned. The medicine levels were perfect. His breathing was steady. But something about him seemed off. She moved to the next bed. Corporal Jinwoo had taken shrapnel to his shoulder last week. He was healing well and should wake up soon. But when Jia touched his forehead, his skin felt strange. Too cold. Too still. A bright light flashed outside the tent. Jia looked up through the small window. The light came again, blue and white, brighter than lightning. But there was no thunder, no storm clouds in the clear night sky. Nurse Kim, Dr. Hanbin walked over with a clipboard. 3 more patients disappeared last night, just like the others. Jia turned to face him. Disappeared? What do you mean? Gone from their beds, no sign of struggle, no footprints. Security cameras show nothing. Dr. Hanbin rubbed his tired eyes. Command thinks they walked away. But these men couldn't walk. Broken bones. Surgery wounds. Some were unconscious. The light flashed again outside. This time, it stayed longer. Through the tent wall, Jia could see shadows moving. Large shadows. Too big to be human. Doctor, look outside. Jia pointed to the window. Dr. Hanbin walked over and pushed the tent flap aside. I don't see anything, just the guard towers and the fence. But Jia could still see the shadows. They moved slowly between the buildings, silent, careful, like they were hunting. I need to check on the patients in tent 3, Jia said. Something is wrong. Stay here. I'll call security. Dr. Hanbin reached for his radio. The radio made a strange buzzing sound, then nothing. All the lights in the hospital went out at once. Emergency power should have turned on. But everything stayed dark. Jia grabbed a flashlight from the supply cart. The beam cut through the darkness as she walked toward tent 3. Her footsteps sounded too loud in the silence. Where were the guards? Where were the other nurses? She pushed open the flap to tent 3. The flashlight beam showed empty beds. All 12 patients were gone. The sheets were still warm. Medical equipment was still running. But no people. A low humming sound came from above. Jia stepped outside and looked up. The stars were blocked by something huge. A dark shape hung in the sky like a giant metal cloud. Lights blinked along its edges. Blue and white lights, just like the flashes she had seen. The humming got louder. A beam of light shot down from the ship and surrounded Jia. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Her body felt heavy like she was underwater. The flashlight fell from her hand. Slowly, Jia began to rise into the air. The hospital got smaller below her. She could see the whole base now. Guard towers were empty. No vehicles moved on the roads. Everyone was gone or hiding. The light pulled her up into the belly of the ship. Metal walls closed around her. The humming stopped. Gravity returned, and Jia fell to her knees on a cold floor. She was in a large room with curved walls. Strange, symbols glowed on panels near the ceiling. The air smelled like metal and something else, something that reminded her of reptiles at the zoo. Stand up, human. The voice was deep and rough. Jia looked up to see a creature that made her heart stop. It was tall like a man, but covered in dark green scales. Its head was long like a lizard, with yellow eyes that had no pupils. Sharp teeth showed when it spoke. You will come with me, the creature said. It wore some kind of armor made from black metal. A weapon hung at its side. Jia forced herself to stand. Her nursing training had taught her to stay calm in emergencies. This was definitely an emergency. The creature led her down a long hallway. Other creatures like it stood at doorways. They all watched her walk past. Some made clicking sounds with their teeth. They stopped at a large door that slid open with a hiss. Inside was a room full of cages. And in those cages were people, humans. Some wore military uniforms, others wore civilian clothes. All looked scared and confused. "Gia," a voice called from one of the cages. She turned to see Corporal Jinwoo, the soldier with the shoulder wound. "You're alive, we thought they killed you." "What is this place?" Gia asked. "Prison ship," said another voice. Private Minho sat in a cage nearby. His broken leg was wrapped in strange metal bandages. "They took us from the hospital, took people from other places too." The tall creature pushed Gia toward an empty cage. "You will wait here. Soon you will fight. Winners live, losers die. This is the way." "Fight?" Gia stepped back. "I'm a nurse. I don't fight. I heal people." The creature made a sound like laughter. "All humans fight when death comes. You will learn." The cage door slammed shut. Gia grabbed the bars and shook them. The metal was too strong. She was trapped. Around her, other humans sat quietly in their cages. Some had fresh wounds. Others looked like they had been here for weeks. Their eyes were empty. Hopeless. "How long have you been here?" Gia asked Minho. 3 days, maybe 4. Hard to tell. They took 6 people before us, made them fight each. Other with weapons, only 3 came back. Minho's voice was quiet. "They say we're going to their homeworld, to fight in arenas for sport." Gia felt sick. These creatures had stolen people from Earth to use as entertainment, forced them to hurt each other for fun. "I won't do it," she said. "I won't fight." "You will," said an older man in the cage across from her. "When they put a sword in your hand and tell you to kill or die, you'll fight. Everyone does." But Gia shook her head. She had taken an oath as a nurse, to do no harm, to protect life. Even here, millions of miles from Earth, that oath still meant something. The ship hummed around them as it flew deeper into space, taking them away from home, taking them to a place where humans were expected to kill each other for alien entertainment. Gia Kim had other plans. 3 days passed in the metal cage. Gia had not eaten the strange food they brought. The other humans told her she would starve if she kept refusing, but Gia was more worried about what would happen when the aliens called her to fight. The ship was always moving. Sometimes it shook when they jumped through space. Other times it was quiet except for the humming of engines. Gia spent her time talking to the other prisoners and learning about their captors. The aliens called themselves Narak. They were warriors who traveled the galaxy looking for strong fighters. Humans were new to their collection. Before Earth, they had taken creatures from 12 other worlds. "They tested us first," said Corporal Jinwoo from his cage. "Made us lift heavy things. Made us run. They were surprised how long we could keep going." Private Minho nodded. "They said humans never give up. Even when we're hurt, we keep fighting. That's why they want us." On the 4th day, everything changed. Gia was sitting in her cage when she heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. A Narak guard was walking toward the prison area. But something was wrong. His steps were uneven. He was leaning against the wall. The guard stopped outside Gia's cage. She could see his yellow eyes were dim. Green blood leaked from a cut on his arm. His breathing was fast and shallow. "Guard down in Section 7. The alien spoke into a device on his wrist. His voice was weak. "Need medical help." But no answer came from the device. The guard swayed and fell to his knees. More green blood pooled on the floor. "Hey," Gia called to him. "You're hurt bad. You need help." The guard looked at her with confusion. "Human speaks? I'm a nurse, a healer. Let me see your wound." The other prisoners stared at Gia. "What are you doing?" whispered Minho. "Don't help them." But Gia couldn't watch someone die. Even an alien who had kidnapped her. It went against everything she believed. The guard crawled closer to her cage. "You fix Narak?" "I can try, but I need to touch your arm. And I need clean water." The guard hesitated. Then he pressed a button on his belt. The cage door opened with a click. Gia stepped out carefully. This was her chance to escape. She could run down the hallway and maybe find a way off the ship. Instead, she knelt beside the injured guard. The cut was deep and jagged. Something sharp had torn through his scales and the muscle underneath. If this was a human, they would need surgery right away. Water, Gia said. Clean water. The guard pointed to a panel on the wall. Gia pressed it and clean water flowed out. She used her hands to cup the water and clean the wound. The guard made pained sounds but held still. The bleeding won't stop, Gia said. I need something to close the cut. The guard reached into a pouch on his belt. He pulled out a small device that looked like a pen. Flesh mender, for minor wounds only. Gia took the device and examined it. It had settings with alien symbols. She pointed to different symbols and the guard nodded or shook his head until she found the right one. The device made a humming sound when she activated it. When she touched it to the guard's wound, the cut began to seal itself. The bleeding stopped. In minutes, new scales started growing over the healing flesh. Impossible, the guard whispered. Humans know Narek medicine? All medicine is similar, Gia said. Stop bleeding, clean wound, help body heal itself. The guard stood up slowly. He tested his arm and nodded. You saved Thak's life. Thak is your name? Yes. Gia Kim is yours. We know all human names. More footsteps echoed in the hallway. 3 Narek guards ran toward them with weapons ready. They stopped when they saw Thak standing. Medical emergency over? One asked. Human healer fixed wound, Thak said. Better. Then medical bay. The 3 guards looked at Gia with surprise. Human knows medicine? Very good medicine, Thak said. Better than ours. Word spread quickly through the ship. Within hours, Gia heard guards talking in the hallways about the human who healed a Narek. Some were curious. Others were angry that she had been allowed out of her cage. The next day, a different alien came to see her. This one wore fancier armor with gold markings. His scales were darker, and his eyes were sharper. I am Commander Suk, he said. You are the human healer. I am Nurse Gia Kim, she replied. My offspring is sick. Our healers cannot help. You will come with me. Gia looked at the other prisoners. They shook their heads and whispered warnings. This could be a trick or a test. What's wrong with your offspring? Gia asked. High fever. Won't eat? Won't drink? Getting weaker each day. Commander Suk's voice was worried. If offspring dies, my family line ends. Gia thought about this. She could refuse and stay in her cage. But a child was sick, even an alien child. Her oath as a nurse was clear. I'll try to help. But I need to know more about Narek medicine, and I need supplies. Commander Suk nodded. Follow me. The medical bay was larger than Gia expected. Strange machines lined the walls. Bottles filled with colored liquids sat on shelves. Everything looked advanced but different from human medicine. In the center of the room was a small bed. On it lay a young Narek, maybe 10 years old in human years. His scales were pale and dry. His breathing was quick and weak. Gia approached slowly. Can I touch him? Her, Commander Suk corrected. Female offspring. Gia placed her hand on the young alien's forehead. The skin was burning hot. Too hot for any Earth creature to survive. But maybe normal for Narek was different. How long has she been sick? 7 days. Started after eating new food from captured world. Food poisoning, Gia thought. Or maybe an allergic reaction. She looked at the medical equipment around the room. Most of it was for treating battle wounds. Nothing for internal medicine. I need to know what she ate. And I need to understand how Narek bodies work. Commander Suk showed her files on a computer screen. The symbols were alien, but some had pictures. Gia began to understand Narek biology. Their stomachs were different from humans, more sensitive to certain chemicals. She compared this to the food records. One item caught her attention. A fruit from another world that contained compounds similar to Earth foods that caused allergic reactions. Stop giving her this fruit, Gia said, pointing to the screen. Her body can't process it, it's poisoning her slowly. But she likes the taste. It's her favorite food. It's killing her. Trust me. For the next 6 hours, Gia worked to save the young Narak. She used human techniques adapted for alien biology. She mixed medications in ways the Narak healers had never tried. Slowly, the fever broke. The young alien opened her yellow eyes and spoke to her father in their language. Commander Suk's eyes were bright with tears. You saved her. You saved my offspring. She'll be fine now. Just keep her away from that fruit. The commander looked at Gia with new respect. Humans truly are remarkable, not just as fighters, but as healers too. As they walked back to the prison area, Gia saw other guards watching her differently. Word was spreading that the human who wouldn't fight could do something even more valuable. She could save lives. 2 weeks later, the ship arrived at the Narak homeworld. Gia pressed her face against the small window in her cage and saw a planet of red mountains and orange deserts. Strange cities made of black stone covered the valleys between peaks. This was Naraka, the world where humans would fight for alien entertainment. End of the line, wow, said Private Minho from the cage next to hers. I heard the guards talking. We go to the capital city tomorrow. The other human prisoners looked scared. During the journey, 6 more humans had been taken to fight in practice matches. Only 3 came back alive. The survivors refused to talk about what happened, but something had changed during the trip. Word of Gia's healing abilities spread through the ship. Narak guards began coming to her with small injuries, cuts from training, burns from engine, work, sickness from bad food. At first, Commander Suk had to give permission each time. Then the guards started asking Gia directly. She never refused to help, even when they were rude to her, even when they threatened the other humans. Why do you help them? Asked Corporal Jinwoo. They're going to make us kill each other. Because that's what healers do, Gia replied. We help everyone who needs it. The next morning, Narak soldiers in fancy armor came for the prisoners. They wore red and gold colors instead of the plain, black armor of the ship guards. These were palace soldiers. All humans come, the lead soldier announced. King Doyun will see you. They were loaded onto a transport vehicle that flew over the alien cities. Gia saw huge arenas built into mountainsides. Thousands of Narak filled the seats watching creatures fight below. This was what awaited them. The royal palace was carved from a single black mountain. Towers reached toward the red sky. Flags with strange symbols flew from the walls. The transport landed in a courtyard filled with Narak nobles wearing colorful robes. Palace guards marched the humans through long hallways. The walls were covered with paintings of Narak warriors fighting monsters and enemies. Everything was about battle and victory. They stopped in a throne room bigger than any building Gia had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into shadows above. Hundreds of Narak nobles sat on benches along the walls. At the far end, on a throne made from black metal and red stones, sat the Narak king. King Doyun was larger than the other aliens. His scales were almost black with silver edges. Scars covered his arms and face. A crown made from the bones of defeated enemies sat on his head. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire room. So these are the humans, the new fighters from the small blue world. A Narak advisor whispered in the king's ear. The king's eyes focused on Gia. Commander Suk tells me one of you is a healer. Which one? Commander Suk stepped forward and pointed at Gia. This female, my king. She saved my offspring. She saved many of our warriors during the journey. Interesting. King Doyun stood up from his throne. Approach, human healer. Gia walked forward while the other humans stayed back. The nobles whispered to each other as she crossed the large room. She stopped at the bottom of the throne and looked up at the alien king. You are called Gia Kim, the king said. Yes, your majesty. Do not use royal titles. I am not your king. Yet. King Doyun walked down the steps until he stood in front of her. Commander Suk says you heal Narak, but you refuse to fight. This confuses me. Fighting is not my purpose, Jia said. My purpose is to heal the sick and wounded. Angry sounds came from the nobles. Some shouted in their alien language, a few stood up from their seats. Silence, the king commanded. The room became quiet. Human, do you understand what you are saying? On Naraka, everything fights. The weak die, the strong live. This is the way of nature. On Earth, we believe the strong should protect the weak. Healers save lives. Warriors take lives. Both are important, but I choose healing. The king studied her face. You truly believe this? Yes. Even if it means death? Yes. King Doyan returned to his throne. Then we will test this belief. Tomorrow you will face my champion in the royal arena. If you fight and win, you earn freedom. If you fight and lose, you die with honor. If you refuse to fight, you die as a coward. The nobles cheered. This was the entertainment they came to see. I will not fight your champion, Jia said clearly. I will not fight anyone. Then you will die. The king waved his hand. Take them to the holding cells. Tomorrow will be interesting. That night, Jia sat in a stone cell under the arena. The other humans were in cells nearby. Through the bars, she could hear thousands of Narak arriving for tomorrow's fights. The sound was like thunder that never stopped. Please reconsider, said Commander Suk. He had come to visit her in the cell. The king respects your healing skills, but if you do not fight, he must execute you. It is the law. I understand, Jia said, but I cannot break my oath. I cannot take a life. Then you will give up your own life for nothing. Not for nothing. For what I believe is right. Commander Suk shook his head. Humans are very strange creatures. The next day came too quickly. Guards brought Jia to a room under the arena. Through the ceiling, she could hear the crowd cheering for other fights. Soon it would be her turn. A guard brought weapons to her cell, swords and axes and spears, all sharp and deadly. Choose your weapon, human. I choose no weapon. You must choose. It is required. Then I choose my hands. They are the only weapons I need for healing. The guard looked confused but wrote something on his report. The arena doors opened. Bright sunlight hurt Jia's eyes after the dark cells. She walked onto the sand and looked up at thousands of Narak filling the seats. King Doyan sat in the royal box with his advisors. Across the arena, another door opened. The king's champion walked out. He was huge, even for a Narak. Scars covered his body from hundreds of battles. In his hands, he carried a sword longer than Jia was tall. I am Hayuk, the champion called across the sand. I have killed warriors from 20 worlds. Choose your weapon and die with honor. I am Jia Kim, she replied. I heal warriors from one world. I choose no weapon and live with honor. The other crowd fell silent. This had never happened before. Yuk raised his sword and charged across the arena. His feet thundered on the sand. The crowd began to cheer. Jia stood perfectly still. She did not run. She did not raise her hands to defend herself. She simply waited. At the last second, Hyuk stopped. His sword blade touched Jia's throat but went no further. Why do you not fight? He demanded. Because I choose not to. For long moments they stood frozen. The crowd was completely quiet. Everyone waited to see what would happen. Finally, Hayuk lowered his sword. I cannot kill one who will not defend themselves. It is not honorable combat. He turned to the royal box and shouted, My king, I cannot complete this fight. The human shows a different kind of courage. She faces death without fear, but refuses to deal death to others. King Doyun stood up slowly. The entire arena waited for his decision. Fascinating, the king said, his voice carrying across the sand. Today we have learned something new about humans. They can be brave in ways we never imagined. The king raised his hand. Jia Kim, you will not die today. Instead, you will serve as my advisor. You will teach us about this strange human courage that heals instead of hurts. The crowd erupted in confused cheers and angry shouts. Some loved this new development, others wanted blood, but Jia Kim had won without fighting. She had changed the rules of an entire world simply by refusing to play their game. 3 months passed since the arena challenge. Jia now lived in a room inside the royal palace instead of a prison cell. The room had windows that looked out over the capital city. She could see the mountains and the training grounds where young Narak learned to fight. Every morning, King Doyan called her to his throne room for advice. At first, the meetings were short. The king asked about human medicine and Jia answered his questions. But slowly, their talks became longer and more interesting. "Your people fascinate me," King Doyan said one morning. "You are weak in body, but strong in spirit. How is this possible?" "We are not weak," Jia replied. "We are different. Humans survive by working together, by helping each other, by healing instead of hurting when we can." The king thought about this. "But the strong must rule the weak. This is natural law. On Earth, we believe the strong should protect the weak. A society is only as strong as its weakest member." These conversations were changing the king's mind about humans. He began asking Jia to treat injured palace guards and sick servants. Word spread that the human advisor had magic healing powers. Jia set up a small medical room in the palace. She taught young Narak servants how to clean wounds and mix simple medicines. They were eager students who learned quickly. "You could be warriors," Jia told them. "But healing is also an important skill. Both fighters and healers serve their people." The young Narak had never heard this idea before. On Naraka, only fighting mattered. Healers were seen as weak and unimportant, but Jia showed them that healing required intelligence, courage, and dedication, just like fighting. One of her best students was a young female Narak named Mira. She was small for her species and had failed warrior training. Her family was ashamed of her weakness, but Mira had gentle hands and a quick mind for medicine. "I want to learn everything," Mira told Jia. "Teach me how to save lives like you do." "First, you must promise to never use healing knowledge to hurt others," Jia said. "A healer's hands must never cause harm. I promise." While Jia was building support in the palace, trouble was growing elsewhere. General Taehun, the Narak commander who had captured her on Earth, was angry about the changes happening on Naraka. "The human is poisoning our culture," he told his officers. "She makes our young warriors soft. She teaches them that fighting is wrong." "But the king supports her," said one officer. "The king is old and foolish. He has forgotten the warrior way. Soon, other worlds will see our weakness and attack us." General Taehun began meeting in secret with other military leaders. They called themselves the Pure Warriors. Their goal was to remove all human influence from Naraka and return to the old ways. "We must act before it is too late," General Taehun said at one of their meetings. "Kill the human advisor. Kill the king if necessary. Save our warrior culture." But their plans had to wait. A new crisis was developing that would test everyone. It started small. A few Narak in the palace became sick with stomach pain and fever. The palace healers gave them medicine, but more people got sick every day. Within a week, hundreds were ill. Within 2 weeks, thousands. The sickness spread through the capital city like fire through dry grass. Normal Narak medicine did not help. People were dying. Even strong warriors were falling sick. King Doyan called Jia to an emergency meeting. "Can you help us? Our healers are lost." Jia examined the sick Narak in the palace. Their symptoms were strange: stomach pain, fever, weakness, and a green rash on their scales. She had never seen anything like it. "This is not a natural sickness," she told the king. "Someone is poisoning your people." "Impossible. Who would dare?" Jia studied the water supply, the food storage, and the air systems in the palace. Everything seemed normal, but the sickness kept spreading. She worked day and night trying to find the cause. Mira helped her check every source of food and water in the palace. They tested samples in Jia's medical room. Most were clean. But when they tested the water from the main palace well, Jia found something terrible. "Look at this." She showed Mira a sample under a microscope. "See these small particles? They don't belong in water. What are they?" Poison. Someone is putting poison in the water supply. Jia ran to tell King Doyan, but palace guards stopped her in the hallway. General Taehun wants to see you, one guard said. They brought her to the throne room where General Taehun sat in the king's chair. His supporters stood around him with weapons ready. Where is the king? Jia demanded. Sick in his room. Very sick. Like everyone else. General Taehun smiled with his sharp teeth. Except for me and my loyal soldiers. We were smart enough to bring our own water. You did this. You poisoned your own people. I saved them. The poison only affects Narak. Humans are not harmed. When everyone dies, I will blame you and your human friends. Then I will kill all humans on Naraka and restore our warrior culture. Jia felt sick with horror. You're killing thousands of innocent people. Weakness must be cut out like disease. The king made us weak by listening to you. Now he will pay the price. General Taehun stood up from the throne. But you are useful, human. You will make an antidote for the poison. You will save only the warriors who follow me. The rest will die. I won't help you murder people. Then everyone dies, including your human friends from the ship. Jia's heart sank. The other human prisoners were still in the palace dungeons. If she didn't help, they would die along with everyone else. I need to see the poison, she said finally. I need to understand how it works before I can make an antidote. General Taehun led her to a secret room in the palace basement. Bottles of clear liquid sat on tables. Equipment for mixing chemicals lined the walls. My scientists worked for months to create this, he said proudly. It targets Narak biology specifically. Very clever. While he talked, Jia studied the poison samples. Her medical training helped her understand how it worked. The poison attached to something in Narak blood that humans didn't have. That's why humans were safe. I can make an antidote, she lied. But I need 3 days to prepare it properly. You have 1 day. Then everyone dies. The antidote takes time to develop correctly. General Taehun thought about this. 2 days. No more. That night, Jia worked in her medical room with Mira's help. But instead of making an antidote just for the pure warriors, she created a cure that would save everyone. Why help all of them? Mira asked. General Taehun will kill us when he finds out. Because that's what healers do, Jia said. We save everyone we can. On the second day, as Jia finished preparing the cure, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. Commander Suk and loyal palace guards had discovered General Taehun's plot. Fighting broke out in the hallways as the pure warriors battled the king's loyal soldiers. In the chaos, Jia and Mira ran through the palace carrying bottles of antidote to the sick and dying. General Taehun found them in the royal bedroom where King Doyun lay unconscious from the poison. Stop right there, human. He pointed his weapon at Jia. You have betrayed me for the last time. I have saved your people, Jia replied, not stopping as she gave the antidote to the king. You have ruined everything. General Taehun raised his weapon to strike. But Jia was ready. Instead of running or fighting back, she stepped between General Taehun and the sick king. She used her body as a shield while Mira helped the king drink the antidote. The weapon struck Jia in the shoulder, sending her to the floor. But she had bought enough time. Commander Suk and his soldiers burst into the room and captured General Taehun. As Jia lay bleeding on the palace floor, King Doyan opened his eyes. The antidote was working. He would live. So would thousands of other Narak throughout the capital city. You saved us all, the king whispered. Even after we brought you here against your will, even after we threatened your life, you still saved us. Jia smiled weakly. That's what healers do. 2 weeks after the poisoning crisis, Jia's shoulder had healed well. The royal doctors were amazed at how fast humans recovered from injuries. She was back to her daily routine of teaching healing arts to young Narak and advising King Doyun. But everything on Naraka had changed. The news of how a human had saved the entire capital city spread across the planet. Other Narak cities sent messages asking for human healers to be trained. Some even offered to trade weapons for medical knowledge. Your actions have created something new, King Doyen told Gia during their morning meeting. For the first time in our history, Narak want to learn about healing instead of just fighting. The throne room was different now, too. Where once only military advisors stood, now young Narak healers like Mira also attended meetings. They carried medical supplies instead of weapons. The old guards grumbled, but they couldn't argue with success. General Taihun and his pure warriors were in prison. Their trial had lasted 3 days. The evidence was clear. They had tried to kill thousands of innocent Narak to stop cultural change. King Doyen sentenced them to work in the medical centers for 10 years, helping heal the people they had tried to murder. Justice and mercy together, the king explained to Gia. They will learn the value of life by saving it. That afternoon brought unexpected visitors. 3 large ships landed in the palace courtyard. But these were not Narak ships. They were human vessels from Earth. Gia watched from her window as the ships opened. Human soldiers in Earth uniforms stepped out, followed by diplomats in formal clothes. She recognized the flag of the United Nations painted on their ships. How did they find us? She wondered aloud. Mira was with her, organizing medical supplies. Commander Suk told me they followed the signals from General Taehun's ship. Your people are very clever with technology. Within an hour, Gia was called to the throne room. King Doyen sat on his throne with the human diplomatic team standing before him. Their leader was a woman in a blue uniform with many medals. Admiral Park, the woman introduced herself when she saw Gia. We came here following the trail of our missing citizens. We're here to bring you home. I am honored to meet you, Gia replied, but I'm not sure if I can leave. I have responsibilities. Here now. Admiral Park looked surprised. You want to stay with your kidnappers? They are not my kidnappers anymore. They are my patients and my students. King Doyen stood up from his throne. Admiral Park of Earth, your citizen has brought great change to our world. She has shown us that strength can be used to heal as well as to hurt. We wish to propose a formal alliance between our peoples. The negotiations took 3 days. Admiral Park was suspicious at first. She had come expecting to rescue prisoners and punish aliens. Instead, she found humans who were respected advisors and a king who wanted peace. This is highly unusual, she said during one meeting. Our missing citizens were taken against their will. Now you want to form an alliance? The past cannot be changed, King Doyen replied, but the future can be shaped. Your people have knowledge we need. Our people have strength you could use. Together, we can both grow stronger. Gia helped translate between the two cultures. She explained human values to the Narak and Narak honor to the humans. Slowly, trust began to build. The other human prisoners were given a choice. They could return to Earth immediately or stay on Naraka as part of the new alliance. Most chose to go home. But Corporal Jinwoo and Private Minho decided to stay and help train Narak in human medicine and technology. Earth will always be home, Jinwoo told Gia, but this place needs us now. We can do more good here than back home. On the 4th day, Admiral Park made an announcement that shocked everyone. Earth accepts the Narak proposal for alliance. We will establish an embassy here and begin cultural exchange programs, medical knowledge for defensive technology, human healers for Narak protection. But the biggest surprise came from King Doyen. I have one more request, he said to Admiral Park. I wish to formally adopt Gia Kim into the royal family of Naraka. She will become Princess Gia, heir to the throne. The throne room fell completely, silent. Even Gia was speechless. This is unprecedented, King Doyen continued. Never before has a non-Narak been made royal family. But never before has someone saved our entire civilization through healing instead of conquest. Admiral Park looked at Gia. The choice is yours, Nurse Kim. This would make you a member of an alien royal family. You would have to give up your Earth citizenship. Gia thought about her life on Earth, her hospital, her friends, her family. Then she looked around the throne room at Mira and the other young healers, at Commander Suk, who had become like a father to her, at King Doyen, who had learned to value life over death. I accept, she said finally, but only if I can continue my work as a healer. A princess who cannot heal her people is no princess at all. Agreed, King Doyen smiled. You will be the first princess of healing in Narak history. The coronation. Ceremony took place 1 month later. Representatives from Earth and 12 other worlds attended. Former enemies sat side by side in the great arena where Gia had once refused to fight. Instead of a sword or spear, the Narak presented Princess Gia with a staff made from rare metals. One end was shaped like a healing symbol. The other end could extend into a defensive weapon if needed. It represented the new Narak way, healing first, fighting only when necessary. As princess, Gia's first act was to establish the Academy of Life. Young Narak could now choose between warrior training and healer training. Both paths were equally honored. Both served the people. Her second act was to create the path of preservation alongside the traditional path of combat. Narak could now achieve honor by saving lives as well as taking them. The greatest heroes were those who mastered both healing and fighting. Within a year, the changes spread across Naraka. Cities that once competed through combat now competed to see who could train the best healers. Narak, who had spent their lives learning to kill, began learning to cure diseases and mend broken bones. Other alien species heard about the peaceful revolution on Naraka. They sent ambassadors to learn about this new way of thinking. Some worlds, that had hidden from the Narak for centuries, came forward to establish trade relationships. Gia stood on the palace balcony one evening, watching the sunset over the capital city. The training grounds below showed both warrior classes and healer classes practicing side by side. Young Narak learned to fight with honor and heal with compassion. Mira joined her on the balcony. She now wore the robes of a master healer, the first non-royal Narak to earn that title. Do you ever regret staying? Mira asked. Gia smiled and shook her head. I came here as a prisoner. I became a teacher, then an advisor, now a princess. But through it all, I remained what I always was, a healer. And you changed an entire world without ever raising a weapon. Sometimes the greatest victories come from refusing to fight the wrong battle, Gia said. I couldn't make them stop being warriors, but I could show them there was honor in healing too. Far below them, human and Narak children played together, in the palace gardens. The future was being born in their laughter and friendship, a future where strength served life instead of death. Princess Gia Kim, the human who refused to kill, had built something more powerful than any army. She had built hope, and hope once planted grows everywhere,